You seem uncomfortable. Do I make you nervous, Corky?
No.
Thirsty, maybe.
Curious, maybe.
That's funny. I'm feeling a little bit curious myself.
I put them to death. I warned them. I said, I'll break you. They shouldn't have done it, and they did. I told them not to. They asked for what they got. I gave it to them, but they asked for it. They went too far. I said, I'll break you. They shouldn't have. They asked for it. Death! The podcasters. Welcome to Pleasers.
And Punishers.
Where we talk about movies that people love to watch.
Movies that ruin your today, tomorrow, and yesterday.
And all things kinky and queer.
I'm Caitlin of the North.
And I'm May, huge tits like watermelons Schultz.
And today we're discussing our favorite methods for dismembering dolls. And finishing up Giallo January with Lucio Fulci's 1972 Don't Torture a Duckling. Starring Florinda Bolkin, Barbara Bouchet, and Thomas Millian, scored by Riz Ortolani, with featured vocals by Ornella Vanoni.
And a film this intense and involved requires an extra investigator. So please welcome filmmaker, screenwriter, podcaster, and all-around lovely human being, Michael Varrati.
Hello, or shall I say buongiorno?
Buongiorno. Thank you for joining us, Michael.
I am absolutely thrilled to be here. I love Fulci, and the opportunity to talk about one of his movies, especially one that I think is under-discussed for many reasons. It's not necessarily the laugh riot that some of his other films are. But I do think this film is a really interesting starting point in many ways for the godfather of gore that became really known to international audiences in the decades that followed. And especially looking at it through the lens through which you both look at movies, I'm quite interested because, yes, there's sexual aggression in this film, but it's a kind we don't normally think of when I necessarily think of, say, pleasers or punishers.
Well, we'll definitely get into that. But first, tell me all, would you ever want to live in a small Italian town?
I mean, like maybe the one from Bruno. I'm not sure about this one, though.
How far out is your family from immigrating to the United States, Michael?
Mine is not that far out. In fact, my great-grandfather, my dad's grandpa, was fresh off the boat. He came from northern Italy, where this movie is set. And we grew up around a lot of old Italian people who were still, very committed to certain ways of cooking and certain ways of celebrating and certain ways of yelling at and talking to each other. So there are some aspects to some of these movies that I find ring very true because, Italy of the 70s is not very far removed from the Italian Americans that I grew up with. And I am quite certain that some of the places that my relatives came from were exactly like this. What was really interesting, I think, with a lot of Italian immigrants, especially those that kind of folded into small-town America when my grandfathers did, there was kind of a assimilation process that happened where you were very Italian at home, but not always outwardly elsewhere. And so certain details kind of got lost along the way. And my mom's side is 100% Italian and has a little more of a bead on kind of their background. But the variety of it all, I grew up knowing, where not knowing where my family was from. I just knew they were from Italy. And strangely connected to the world of giallo and Italian horror. When I first started getting involved as a filmmaker and writer in the genre, I would do a lot of horror conventions on the East Coast. And I worked for a magazine that at the time was very involved in connecting with European filmmakers who had not gotten a lot of attention stateside. And we were one of the first to connect with Ruggero Deodato, who directed Cannibal Holocaust when he came stateside to do conventions. And I picked him up at the airport in Cleveland, Ohio. And he and I had a wild misadventure that included me taking him to an Abercrombie and Fitch, which is a tale for another day. But we were in my car, and I'll never forget the famed director of Cannibal Holocaust and House on the Edge of the Park and all of these other things looked at me and he said, Varrati, this is a Northern Italian name. And I was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't know that. So like, I then had to like call my dad. I'm like, Dad, Ruggero Deodato said that we're from Northern Italy.
Questions.
Yeah, and so then I did subsequent like Ellis Island research and found where Grandpa Varrati was from. But it was funny that like the first indicator that we came from a village not unlike the one in Don't Torture a Duckling came from a famed Italian horror filmmaker.
Well, that makes me feel like you're absolutely the perfect guest to have on for this. Caitlin, what about you? Would you ever live in a small town in Italy?
So, as some people may know, or not, Italy has been putting out ads, I guess, being like, hey, come buy this old like Italian villa for nothing. It's like $1 or something, but you have to put all of your own money into it to like restore it and everything.
If I could get a passport right now, I would fucking do that in a heartbeat. Get me the fuck out of here.
Yes, and that was one of the reasons why I asked, was because I know for Italian Americans, getting your Italian citizenship isn't as difficult as other places because my partner is very Italian American. His last name is Capozzoli, and he's from New Jersey. So a lot of that East Coast Italian American, and we have been talking definitely this year, but previous years too. He's like, but could I get my citizenship? What if I left? And I was like, funny story. A person in charge of Italy right now is a fascist. But
Oh, yeah.
so now might not be the time. However, my answer is yes, particularly if I could just fuck off and not have to talk to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think of most small towns, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to live in this town in particular, but I would be happy to live in a town in Italy.
Sure. Though, to be fair, and not to get too dark too fast, if you don't have kids, you may be okay in this town.
That's true. Well, let's find out why in our next section as we get into some role play.
Is that your bathing suit? Is that your overbite?
Now, one of you will be the drowning victim, and the other one gets to be our lifesaver.
I'll be the victim. All your life.
On a hill near a long elevated bridge, Florinda Bolkin's Macchiara digs up the bones of a small child. In this provincial Italian town of Accendura, 3 troublemakers, Bruno, Michele, and Tonino, smoke cigarettes, make fun of the town imbecile Giuseppe, and try to watch some sex workers get it on in a barn with their johns. We see some kind of wax effigies of the boys stabbed with pins by dirty, wax-covered hands.
One of my favorite parts of this is that there's 3 of them, and it just feels like, fuck them kids. Every pin that goes in.
It's true.
But, I have to say, I am not necessarily the most child-friendly person.
Neither are we.
And so I tend to be somewhat dubious around any film that centers on children. But that being said, I'm like, these kids are kind of cool. Like, I don't know what it is. I guess I love a miscreant above all else. Mm-hmm. And since these kids are bad, I'm like, all right, I sort of like them a little bit better. And what's really interesting about this whole thing, a little bit of Italian history that is maybe lost stateside, is the highway that they're off of is the Autostrada, which was built to connect Rome and Florence. And it kind of served as a means to directly go between the cities instead of having to take the longer, more scenic route, which may take many more hours to go. And in both cities, there was an era, as highlighted in a lot of Fellini films, of these sort of prostitution alleys. And when the Autostrada was built and kind of cut out the need of people going through local prostitute row, the actual sex workers of the era would hang out on the side of the highway, and truck drivers and people driving between the cities would pick them up. So we're literally getting at this moment something that was contemporary. These boys are waiting by the highway and see these men with these women who they know are hookers.
Right.
If you're not like aware that that's what's happening, it just seems like these ladies are like, we're going to stop and bang. I'm like, no. This is really their business. That's what they're doing.
They are working. They are working.
Yeah. Well, and I like that juxtaposition of the modernity of that situation with the rural, classical nature of the town.
Yes.
And I think that factors into a lot of the things that happen in this film.
Such as...
Yeah.
Such as...
At home, Michele rolls his eyes at his housekeeper mother before taking orange juice up to Patrizia, played by the absolutely stunning Barbara Bouchet, who you may remember from our episode 2 weeks ago on...
The Red Queen kills 7.
Sorry, I almost said The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, and I'm like, nope, that's not the one we did. God damn it. Played by the stunning Barbara Bouchet, who lounges naked and jokingly propositions the boy, who basically trips on his boner on the way out.
Oh, yes.
The thing about this scene, amongst all the other absolutely problematic things that happen, is when she tries to entice him and dribbles orange juice down her boobs. I'm like, okay, first off, not sexy. Second, you're sticky now. Like, what are you doing?
Like, I am on record many times as talking about how I am absolutely not into food play because I don't want stickiness from food getting involved with my naked body.
Yeah.
Just not good.
Particularly, like, in rural areas where there could be more bugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it didn't look like very good orange juice either. I know that's like truly secondary to the issue here.
However.
But when it's served, I'm like, that's not fresh.
Well, and it looks like it should be fresh because you can see that Michele's mother was like using an electric juicer in the kitchen.
And yet...
I think through the magic of cinema, we started with some real orange juice, and by the time we got to the room, it's Tang. Like, I think that, yeah.
Nom, nom, nom.
As Bruno, one of the other boys, makes his way home late that night, he is chased by an unseen assailant and knocked out. With a ransom demand aimed at his parents, the police begin a search through the hills, and several journalists converge on the town to get the scoop, including the luxuriously mustachioed Andrea Martelli. The police set a trap, and Bruno's father delivers the ransom, which reveals Giuseppe to be the one who demanded it, but he insists he only found the dead boy and buried him, using the situation as an opportunity to make some money.
And then M. Night Shyamalan went, sure, let's just do this. Re the Village.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I know what the twist is already, and I'm like, oh, fuck that.
Well, now this is completely off topic, but I saw that movie like in the theaters when it first came out, and I lost my mind and started laughing so hard when the final twist was revealed that my sister like smacked me and went, Kaylin, you're ruining the movie for other people. Stop laughing. I was like, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. But I kind of love how just insane this all is.
Yeah, I think the twist in that movie is also contextually based on the time, you know. If that had been an episode of The Twilight Zone, we all would have thought it was amazing.
Oh, for sure.
But at that point, it was sort of like he felt responsible that he had to twist.
Gotta do the twist.
Yeah.
He's commanded by the ghost of Chubby Checker.
I was gonna say, I just find him very, very funny, like all the time. So that might be a personal problem. But every time I watch a Shyamalan movie, I just like crack up. I'm like, I'm
with you.
So good.
I thought Trap was a laugh riot in the best way possible.
Amazing.
And I think that is a little bit different because a lot of the comedy in that was very intentional on his part rather than unintentional. And that's why I enjoyed it.
I think Signs is a laugh riot. So you know what? I don't know. This is why I'm on a Pleasers and Punishers podcast, and I'm the Punisher side of the whole thing. So. Also want to say I appreciate how Fulci didn't try to like ugly this guy up. That I feel like happens a lot in movies if you were portraying someone who is differently abled in many ways, that it wasn't like, it's just like, it's a guy. We're good. Let's go.
Yeah. Just like Malvina, the little girl that we'll meet later, they don't really do anything. They just tell us that in non-PC terms, they tell us that she doesn't speak, she can't hear, and she's developmentally disabled.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, I think, the Italian handling of otherness as far as mainstream audiences may go versus what American cinema would have done at the time. Mm-hmm. That is not to say, to your point, May, that it's always PC, but... for these movies that are often accused, and usually justly so, of sensationalism, the violence, the sexuality, there's this really interesting flip side where there is a fairness that we would have never gotten stateside.
Absolutely.
And I often think about Argento. In a lot of his gialli at the time, there are quite frequently queer characters who are never portrayed in any way negative other than they just live in the world that these people operate in.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot.
Yes.
And I feel like it's a similar thing here, too, where Fulci is saying, if you live in a village of this many people, not everybody is going to be in the same place or same capability, and you're going to deal with differently abled folks, and they're part of the village, too, and that's a totally normal thing, and that I appreciate.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
and they're not directly punished for it.
No.
Right.
No one thinks Giuseppe is a menace or a bad person.
Just the outsiders.
Right. It's very interesting. So yeah, I like the candor with which things like this are handled. Like, yeah, they use terms that we would say are not PC, but they're also not using them to say like, this is a bad person. Right. They're not saying there's something wrong with this person. They're saying this person is different. Here's how. And they seem to make accommodations for it, which is surprisingly
Very
progressive.
Very different.
A woman from the village goes to do her washing and finds Tonino, the third boy, drowned. The police confirm that neither boy was molested and that the killer is a maniac, but has a certain internal logic.
The reveal of the boy in the water, I think, is a great visual in this. It's definitely one of those Italian horror visuals. Even though I knew it was coming, every time I'm just like, oh my God, that body's outrageous but shocking. And I think the subsequent scene where Il Inspectore are talking about how neither boy was molested, I think that obviously that's intentional at that moment in time. But I think it's really Fulci telegraphing to the audience, oh, you think because someone would kill kids, this has to be a crime of sex, but it's not. And it then takes a very deliberate switching of the tracks of what one would expect from this kind of crime in this kind of movie. I think those things kind of leave you like, I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to, and we'll talk about this more later, but I think that speaks to the uniqueness of this film in particular within the genre.
Yeah.
Andrea speaks to sexy priest Don Alberto. We find out that Patrizia was involved in a recent drug scandal and that the strange goings-on in the town only started after her arrival.
Dun, dun, dun.
During an evening storm, Michele gets a phone call that appears to be from Patrizia and sneaks out of the house to the woods where he is strangled to death. We finally see that Maciara is the one who has been creating the wax effigies, and the police review footage of her leaving the funeral suddenly.
I love this so much when they're like, the witch is leaving. Like, the witch also, because at this time, I don't go into it and how I usually would, but that there is a lot of Catholicism that is within this witchcraft.
Right.
Yeah, and they directly say in the text that the magic that Machiara and Francesco, her mentor / sexual partner, there's some weird stuff going on there. They are working in conjunction with the accepted religion in the area so that people are not afraid of utilizing his services the same way they normally would be.
And this is something that happened a lot with Catholicism and folk traditions, is that you kind of like smash them all together.
Yeah.
The Irish, that happens a lot, where you look at spells and and it's like they will invoke Jesus and God, and you're like, well, this isn't neo-pagan. Correct, it is not.
One thing that I was thinking about, and I will give credit to my partner who watched the movie with me, the notion of children dying and going missing, and the whole town reacting, and it's a witch. Spoiler-laden comment to come. But I do wonder if Zach Krieger had watched this movie at any point in preparing weapons.
I would almost guarantee that. I think he has mentioned in an interview being a fan of Giallo, and I suppose you could see weapons as a subversion of some of the ideas in this film.
Sure.
Or not. I don't know.
I have a lot of feelings about weapons, and I'm sure we'll cover it eventually. I liked it. I didn't love it. And I found it very fascinating, for sure.
Again, I felt like my childhood trauma versus your childhood trauma with you, it bring her back in me. I was like, weapons, yes, that was mine. Woo! I feel this. Good times. Anyway, so speaking of childhood trauma.
The captain insists that Machiara is harmless, and her mentor, Francesco, practices magic to help others while making a pretty penny. They visit Francesco in an attempt to locate Machiara, and he insists that she does no evil and knows no evil. Before they leave, they spot Patrizia arriving to employ Francesco's services. Girl's always showing up where it seems suspicious, right?
Yeah, I mean, she's the film's ultimate red herring for most of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it's also because she's not great. She's not bad, but she's not good. She's not bad, she's just drawn that way.
I was going to say, she's not good, she's not bad, she's
kind of chaotic neutral,
right.
I would say. The captain receives a call from Don Alberto's mother regarding Machiara's whereabouts, and they find her hiding place in a cave, as well as the buried bones of her child and the wax effigies of the boys. The dogs chase her through the woods, and she is eventually apprehended.
Do not like.
No.
Yeah.
Do not want to be chased by ducks. Ever.
Hey, it's somehow less terrifying than the one dog chasing Maria in Tenebrae, the world's angriest dog.
Although, one thing that I was really thinking about while watching the movie in preparation for this is the resources. Mm-hmm. There are a whole bunch of dogs for
and
this
a whole bunch of cops.
And a whole bunch of cops for this one small town, small village police department. And there is just a general civic engagement. Like, everybody's always everywhere. It was so funny. My partner was just like, isn't it wild that every time there's a body, everybody in town comes out to look? And I was like, okay, to be fair, they probably didn't have TV. So it's just like, have to fill the time somehow.
Mm-hmm. At the police station, Machiara claims to have murdered the boys for disturbing the resting place of her child's bones, but that she didn't strangle them. She put them to death using magic. After a short but striking monologue that I recreated at the top of the episode, she begins to have a seizure. The police determine that she is innocent and release her, but the men of the town follow her to the cemetery where they brutally beat her, leaving her for dead. She climbs toward the road for help, but no one stops, and she succumbs to her injuries.
This is a harrowing sequence. It's very upsetting. Oh, yeah. Even with the sort of dated gore effects, you just feel for her 100%.
That's the thing with, as you called them, dated effects. They're still practical, and so even if you can tell, my suspension of disbelief is extremely powerful and lets me just be okay with how things look as long as they're practical. And so it is viscerally upsetting that they are whipping her with these chains so violently that it is opening wounds on her body, and she essentially bleeds from the traumatic injuries.
Yeah.
And all to that kicky song, which just sets it off. I mean, the disconnect between the music and what is happening on screen is masterful.
It's an excellent example of 70s filmmaking and its propensity to match violence with upbeat music. And I looked at my review from when I originally watched this, and apparently that did not work for me the first time. But on this watch, I loved it. I loved that you have these like upbeat kind of bluesy rock songs, and then it switches to what is actually a piece of the score. And it's so mournful and it's so sad. And it very much illustrates what Fulci's perspective on what is happening is. That was poorly worded, but I think you understand what I mean.
As stupido. To quote the lines of the song, as stupido.
Patrizia and Andrea become friends and discuss Malvina, Don Alberto's 6-year-old sister who can't hear or speak. Mario, another young boy from the town, heads to the haunted house to solicit the sex workers and is ratted out to Don Alberto by his friends. On his way, he comes across Patrizia and her dune buggy, which has a flat tire.
I think we all know what's coming here. Here's the thing. First time, maybe a folly of just lounging nude in your house, but Patrizia continues to be like extra aggressivo to the little boys.
Yes.
And I'm just like, ma'am, I know that you're not the murderer. At this point, it would have been too obvious, but you're not necessarily making me feel like comfortable. Could you go and let the other people in town know that you've moved in? Like by law, that might be required.
Yeah, I'll talk more about it later as well, but on the Arrow Blu-ray, there's a special feature that's a video essay from Kat Ellinger, and she describes these acts of Patrizia kind of attempting to exert power over these young boys as the only way that she can feel that sense of control that she has lost by moving out to the country. Because she's a city girl. She's from Milan. She's used to being hot shit. And here, she's the town outcast. And the only way she is able to essentially feel respected is by exercising that power over these boys.
Right. But it's interesting because it's all children. Like, the adults do not give a shit about her at all.
No.
So she's got to find power where she can. It's fascinating, this whole sequence. And then when she asks him to help her with the car, is it a kiss or money? That moment is really...
Yeah. And it's like, that could be just harmless fun. It could be her just fucking around, or it could be something more insidious. And I like that this moment comes after we've confirmed that the murdered boys so far have not been sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
But we're still left feeling like, ooh, but is she the killer? Is she like luring them in with the idea of sex and then killing them before anything can happen? And I think that adds to her being, as you said, the ultimate red herring.
Yeah. Now, this whole moment, I think, leads to one of the most shocking bits of editing in the film.
The editing is, I mean, that is when they're like, hey, look over here, really hard. But that is a very soft, very lovely moment, and then just exposed brains.
Yeah.
Child brains.
Yes. Mario is found dead in the stream by Don Alberto, and Andrea finds Patrizia's lighter at the scene.
Though we don't hear from Don Alberto, which is just...
Yeah, we just know he was riding his bike out there to prevent Mario from hooking up with some hookers, and...
even looking.
Yeah, and then we just hear that he's the one who found the body. Andrea confronts Patrizia at home about Mario's death, and she tells him all about her interrogation by the police. This flashback interrogation scene is so funny because she clearly just wants to get the fuck out of there, and she's just like answering their questions the way she thinks they want them answered. And so she's lying out her ass over and over until they're like, no, you couldn't possibly have done that. Here's what you actually did. And she's like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, she's real not good at this. And in fact, the reason she eventually gets an alibi is the police are like, you're too dumb. Like, even if she's not. But it's uncomfortable.
Totally.
I think this scene's really uncomfortable because every time she says something, then the police officer's like, well, actually, though. And she's like, no, it's true.
The guy with glasses, is he the police psychologist or...
The one not in uniform?
Yeah.
I kind of viewed him... I actually don't know. I thought that he probably was the... rote inspector character, like everybody else is the uniformed.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, because we have one of those guys in every giallo at some point. You know,
True.
the Carl Malden, the John Saxons of it all.
Yeah. Patrizia and Andrea determine that Malvina has been witness to all of the killings due to her propensity for decapitating her dolls. They speak to Don Alberto, who believes that with patience and gentleness, they may be able to get her to reveal who the killer is. But their mother, Aurelia, finds it impossible because the door is always locked at night. Like, okay, I get that you know your daughter is developmentally disabled. But a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old with the brain of a 3-year-old can figure out how to unlock a door.
Right.
And also, if someone else has unlocked the door, can get out.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, sometimes my cat can unlock a door. So you know what?
Well, now
If my
your
cat
cat's a
can do it,
suspect.
anyone can do it. Yep, exactly. Oh, I suspect her for many things.
suspect.
The crimes.
Andrea is convinced that Aurelia is the killer, and Patrizia receives a phone call from Don Alberto that Aurelia and Malvina have disappeared. The two amateur sleuths track them to the mountains, where Alberto steals the girl away, and Aurelia confesses that her son is mad. In voiceover, Don Alberto states essentially that he has been killing these children in order to save their immortal souls from damnation because of their potential sins. Not sins that they've already committed, but sins that they may commit. Andrea wrestles Malvina from his grasp, and they begin to fight, eventually sending Alberto over the edge of the cliff in a beautiful
Spectacular.
special effects extravaganza.
Spectacular.
I love the face against every rock on the way down. Amazing. Can I just say, because I probably won't bring this up later, there was a moment at the end when we've got the Aurelia, Don Alberto, and Malvina moment where I'm like, wouldn't the craziest reveal of all be that Malvina has killed all of these people?
Yes. It really would. And honestly, it could track, given that these are young boys that are being killed. A young boy is never going to suspect this 6-year-old developmentally disabled girl to be a murderer. So what better way to surprise them?
Yeah.
It would have been a very, very fascinating twist. All right. So, Michael, tell me, what was your experience the first time you saw this movie?
It's interesting because I have had a long relationship with Italian cinema. I came to it through the work of Mario Bava and Dario Argento. And Fulci for a long time was sort of the filmmaker that was their contemporary, their equal, but whispered about. Like, he did the heavier stuff. Whatever you got with Lucio Fulci was going to be more rough, more violent, more freaky. And that coupled with the fact that when I was really starting to discover these movies, some of his films were still not commercially available stateside. You know, they had been, for lack of a better term, banned from distribution in America. And so I had heard about this and Lizard in a Woman's Skin and some of the giallo that he had done, and was very sort of that thing where you build something up, oh, this is going to be horrifying in my brain. And then I finally saw it, and it was not so horrifying in the way that I had come to expect from the man who made Zombie or City of the Living Dead or The Beyond, but it's more unsettling psychologically. I think the gore is not quite the gore that we get with him later. So I think probably like in an adolescent, early 20s sort of way, I was more, oh, bummer, it's not as gory as I expected. But then as I sat with it, it sits with you longer. And it's one that I find harder to return to, but endlessly fascinating because it's so good, but so uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
No, it absolutely does. What about you, Caitlin? When was the first time you watched this?
So I must have been in a mood because I believe I watched this and Sleepaway Camp for the first time in the same night.
Holy shit. When was this?
Oh, 2017, 16,
Okay,
18, somewhere in there.
So almost 10 years ago, possibly 10 years ago.
Yes. Apparently I was definitely in a fuck them kids mood because this came up on, I'm sure, a list of like greatest giallos that you should watch. And I went, oh, it's on Shudder. Click. The way that this movie plays on expectations and the way that this movie just strings you along with the killer, I find it more complicated than a lot of other giallos. And I immediately was like, I love this. This is particularly with, as people might know who have listened to the show, particularly with our Nunsploitation November this past year, Catholic Church. And what this movie had to say about the Catholic Church, I was like, I am here for it. So,
Yes.
I did not start diving into Fulci until relatively far into my giallo journey. So I watched this for the first time apparently on Christmas Eve 2023. This was before I started tagging movies with who I was watching them with, so I don't remember if I watched this with someone or not. But I was so shocked by so many things in this the first time I watched it. And this leads me to my next question of, did you have any idea who the killer was before the reveal? And I did not. Don Alberto was like the last person I would have suspected. And that's interesting because I have a lot of disdain for organized religion, and we know about the history of the Catholic Church and young boys. But because there was no sexual violence being enacted on these boys, I thought, no, it's definitely not the priest. He seems like a good dude. He seems like he loves his community. He loves his little sister, and he's dedicated to like making things safe for people. But rewatching it, this was my third watch because I luckily got to see this at the Alamo for Terror Tuesday back in September, and seeing it on a big screen was incredible. It went from 4 to 4.5 stars on that watch. This watch, it went up to 5 stars for me. So it has entered my Giallo Hall of Fame of just like things that are pretty flawless in my opinion. And like we've talked about on some of these Giallo January episodes, I love being able to revisit something and seeing if knowing who the killer is, I can pick up on the clues that lead you to that. And on this watch, I absolutely could. I took note of every little eye movement, all of his body language, everything that other people say in their interactions with him. And it is definitely telegraphed that he is the killer.
that moment in the church where one of the mothers is screaming like, the murderer is here, the murderer is here. And they pan over and he is just so centered.
Oh, yeah. And then he like turns around during that shot. It's excellent. So did either of you have any suspicions on your first watch who the killer was?
You know, it's interesting. I think that because I saw this a little bit later in my familiarity with Fulci's work. I didn't necessarily, maybe in the first act, know that it was Don Alberto, but there was a point when the suspicion pointed in that direction for several reasons. In addition to the content of the movie, Fulci is an anti-establishment kind of guy, and there's nothing more anti-establishment at this moment in Italy than to be against the Catholic Church. Fulci also is very much a button pusher, and there would have been no bigger button to push than the Catholic Church in 1972. And so these things alone kind of felt like, what's the most shocking move that he could make at this point in this country? In that moment in time, would have absolutely been that person being the killer. That, and I have sort of a loose theory that rings through a lot of Giallo film about what I like to call the murder twink.
Oh my God, same thing. This is what I was about to say. So you go on. You go on, because I have a feeling we're on the same page with this.
Also, Murder Twink would be a really good queer industrial band name.
I agree. There is this thing, Argento does it, Fulci does it. They all kind of do it where they find these men and boys that are really pretty, beautiful. And they either invariably become the most savage kill of the movie or they're the killer. And it's this kind of split notion of this beauty and masculinity being the thing that would be most terrible to destroy or the most dangerous, because you are forgetting the predatory nature of men by looking at this beautiful thing. And it's a consistent theme that happens in a lot of Giallo films. And let's face it, this guy's like a smoke show amongst everybody else in this movie. So when he walks out, I'm like,
pretty
hot priest? Okay, he's the killer. You know?
Yep, I am with Michael on this. The same, spoilers for, I guess, Cat o' Nine Tails, but I immediately looked at the killer and I was like, that guy is too good looking to be in this movie. He is the killer. This is it. This incredibly, like, Cillian Murphy-esque square, an Italian Cillian Murphy is what I'm going to call him. Just square-jawed, cheekbones for days. Comes out and is just like, I don't know. Look at me in my glasses. Ooh. And immediately it's like, you fuck. I'm looking at you is what's happening. And I really love that Fulci, as we've talked about, doesn't play with like the woman as a killer. I mean, he does play with it, which is, everyone loves to play with it a little bit. So
Title of your sex tape.
Play with the lady as a killer, but really turning that all on its head, as may have been expected at Giallo at this time.
Isn't it interesting in Giallo, not that there are not women killers in these movies, but more often than not, when the killer is revealed to be a woman in a Giallo, she's always a matronly character. Or more consistently than not. You know, I think of Deep Red or even Phenomena, where she's not the killer per se, but she's the one protecting the killer. And so there is this interesting...
Yeah, that is really interesting.
I think there are definitely exceptions to that rule, and I think a lot of the time that is true. And I actually have a question about mothers and sons later. But before we get there, let's check out some of the film's context in our next section, Faith and Chance.
Ooh.
I can't exist by myself because I'm afraid of myself, because I'm the maker of my own evil. Goodness is only some kind of reflection upon evil. That's all it is.
All right, Caitlin, take us away.
We're going to talk about fascism. How fun is that for us?
Yay!
How completely out of left field at this moment in time.
I know.
Yeah,
so
nothing fascistic
wild.
is happening in America right now in January 2026.
And I definitely didn't look at politics in the 70s in Italy and was like, oh shit. There are zero connections. I can't make anything to this time now.
Yeah, no parallels at all.
Zero. These are all lies. I'm a liar. So as we talk about the socio-political landscape, I will say a lot of this was taken from The Dark Years, Italy under the Shadow of Terror, uncensored, exclamation point. By World at War on YouTube. I did look a little bit. It looks like it is primarily a YouTube channel that talks about like World War II, and it's just like what happened afterwards. Or basically, I'm saying I didn't look at everything on this channel, but it seemed good. If it's not, I didn't look at it. I don't know. So, that being said, we're going back to World War II. Surprise! As many things in, Europe and the world for decades were impacted by World War II. So in case anyone doesn't know, and if you don't know, I am so mad at the public school system. The Kingdom of Italy was an Axis power during World War II under Benito Mussolini.
Those are the bad guys.
Those are the bad guys. Also, if you do not know, I'm really mad at your homeschool system. After the Allied invasion of Sicily in 1943, so Mussolini was put under arrest. This is fascism. We're talking about fascism right now.
Capital F, fascism.
Mm-hmm. Mussolini was placed under arrest. An armistice then was signed between like the U.S., the Western powers, and Italy. Some of Italy, not all of Italy, because 4 days later, after this armistice was signed in September 8th, 1943, it's kind of wild because a lot of this stuff happens around either mine or my dad's birthday, so I have a really hard time being like, September 8th, not 4th, 8th, August, something, not 4th. So September 8th, 1943, 4 days later, Mussolini is kind of swept away by the Germans, and he is placed as the head of the puppet state in northern Italy, which was the Repubblica di Salo. While the southern Italian co-belligerent army, which I do love that name, I want to be in a... If it wasn't a... didn't have bad connotations, I would love to be in a belligerent army. I feel like I'm in a belligerent army right now, so... But in southern Italy, they put all of their strength, whatever they wanted, behind the Allied powers. So like the United States, Britain, etc., etc. So then, moving forward, after Mussolini is put in as the head of this puppet state, less than 2 years later, April 28th, 1945, he is killed allegedly by communist partisans.
And then his body was paraded in the streets.
Yes, it was. They put that
yeah.
up so people could like laugh at it and yell at it and throw things at it. I'm like,
Yeah, that's what you do to dictators.
Yeah. I always like to point out this is very strong proof that when Italians don't like something, they really don't like something. Mm-hmm. So make your pasta sauce correct, please.
oh my God, this is...
Always save a little bit of your pasta water to add to the sauce because the starch helps thicken it.
See, May knows.
May know.
I'm a very good cook. I may not be Italian, but I'm a good cook.
I sometimes get into shit because I don't use just canned sauce. So that's my East Coast Italian American problem. I don't know but if your family was a canned sauce person, but it's like you get the gravy, which is the red sauce in the cans.
I think that some folks don't have the time to like make a homemade sauce. And my feeling on canned sauce, this is the deviation, is that if you know enough about sauce, you can buy even the cheapest sauce and you can make it better,
Yeah. It's all about seasoning.
It's all seasoning, like what you add. Like, do not be a sauce snob. You can do it right.
Add a little red wine and your sauce is like next level.
To be fair, if you add a little red wine to most situations...
It's gonna be better.
Don't add a little red wine to me. I'm going to get indigestion and a headache.
Fair.
But will you be fun for a little while?
Not as fun as I am when I smoke weed.
Fair.
That is very fair.
Which is all Patrizia wanted.
It's true. This
Oh my
poor
God, that
woman
moment.
involved in a drug scandal because she smokes weed? Come
I
on.
love that the reveal of all of her antics is that she's basically Cheech and Chonging it around this little village. And I'm just like, let her live. I mean, maybe curtail the nudity in front of the youth. But
Also, quick aside, and Caitlin, I texted you about this. The combo stereo system that Patrizia has in her home, that white one with like the circular cutouts, there's an orange version of that in another Giallo. Cannot remember which one off the top of my head. But that was like a super high-end stereo system that was made in the 60s and 70s in Italy. And there is a company that essentially does a recreation of that today, and it's $10,000.
wow.
You weren't kidding. We said thousands. I was thinking like 3,000s.
No. We're talking like a $10,000 stereo, high-end turntable, really nice amplifier, and excellent speakers. Plus, the aesthetic of it is just incredible. I would kill for a stereo like that.
Insane.
And part of the reason that she could buy that was because of the Marshall Plan.
Oh, tell us about that.
Yeah, so post-World War II, Italy is part of the Marshall Plan. There were a lot of reasons why it was set up. Mostly what the United States said was to rebuild war-torn countries in Europe. However, with the Marshall Plan, with particularly those who may have been part of the Axis powers, you were getting a lot less sovereignty with your money than maybe other places. Though the United States is very well known with, hey, you like your sovereignty? Are you sure about that? So with the Marshall Plan, because of half of Italy, or a portion of Italy had sided after Mussolini was deposed in the Kingdom of Italy, his side with the U.S. and Britain. This Marshall Plan, it leads to what is called the economic miracle and la dolce vita. So the good life. Suddenly there was a lot more money in the economy. I talked a bit about the changes between the agrarian and industrialized nature of Italy, I believe, in 4 Flies on Grey Velvet. So check that out if you have not. And so we have a lot of people with a lot more money than they used to. However, Italy is also heavily under U.S. and British influence. The United States, because of World War II, set up a lot of military bases in Italy. And Italy was right there on the Iron Curtain between Western Europe and Russia and communism. Like, right there. And then you have a little carve out for Greece. And then it's just kind of like, keep this in mind, everyone, as we continue on. Because in 1948, the Christian Democrats in Italy win as the ruling party. They are heavily backed by the U.S. and Britain because they are a right-wing party who are positioning themselves as the defense against the West and communism. And only good things can happen now, right? So we're going to fast forward to the mid-1960s. And this is where we get, late 1960s, really, the years of lead, which is 1968 to 1988. Or this is a time of immense political turmoil and terrorism that's happening within Italy. So, like, when we covered Tenebrae, and there are people just blowing shit up in the background, and you're like, what is happening? This is what this is referring to. One of the quotes that I felt really hit in this documentary that I found on YouTube was that because Italy had limited sovereignty, it, quote, had to appear a normal democracy. But in reality, it was no such thing. The intelligence services and military were not subject to government control, but they were based on foreign chains of command. Based on foreign chains of command, based on the victorious countries of World War II. I was like, what? I mean, like, it makes sense when you think about it, but it's like...
Yeah.
So in 1968, the PCI, which is the Communist Party in Italy...
Okay, in pictura est
Oh my
puella,
goodness,
et
where
altera
am
puella.
I?
Sorry. Just sitting here quoting my Latin workbook from
Oh my God.
middle school.
I do not speak Latin. I do not care to. Communists, now we're talking about the communists, start winning larger portions of the vote. And it kind of led to, like, Italy had the strongest, largest communist party in Western Europe. You know who hated that shit? The Americans and the British. So what ends up happening? A bunch of bombings. And then a bunch of muddying the waters by the police. Because as it comes out with these major bombings and acts of violence, is that the Military Intelligence Secret Service, the Domestic Intelligence Agency, the Carabinieri, which I know I'm not saying correctly, but the Carabinieri, which is the military and paramilitary wing of the police force in Italy, which comes up a lot in Don't Torture Duckling, the state police and NATO, because this is Operation Gladio, which was really the United States thing, which was to set up a secret internal army to combat any Soviet invasion that and then it just ended up being used to silence political opponents. Again, shocking.
What a surprise.
So all of these groups started working with far-right terrorist organizations to start basically bombing their own people.
It's kind of the playbook, isn't it?
So, as one of the, I think, journalists or someone who was part of the left wing of everything that was going on, quoted as, "The approach was to cause mayhem by carrying out bombings all over the country and thus provoke demands for more law and order, which would be met with a coup d'etat or an attempted coup d'etat." So this means that they wanted the public to call for government crackdowns in exchange for freedoms. There was a reason
I don't know why. This sounds familiar.
Should maybe bring this up right now for reasons. So eventually, because you cannot push people without any sort of, reaction, especially when you start bombing, I don't know, they're leftist, we're against violence, protests and whatnot, and those get bombed. It's there were retaliatory bombings by left-wing groups. They started more, though, in the mid-'70s. There were a lot of majority members, I believe, maybe all of the members. They were claiming right-wing, either Italian government or CIA agitators were part of their group. So one of these guys, though, not on the left, on the right, Junio Valerio Borghese, and he was the former commander-in-chief of Mussolini's elite troops. So this group, and a lot of the Christian Democrats, wanted to make Italy suffer, and particularly the communists in it, because of the 28th of April, that Mussolini being killed, and just in general, rejecting fascism. Let me read you this quote.
This is going to be upsetting, isn't it?
I mean, So the quote is, "Today I'm speaking out against Italians when I tell you that one of our biggest enemies is the communists, and they are Italians. However, I'm quite happy to describe them as our enemies. It doesn't bother me to say that I would be happy to exterminate them because it would purge our country of the enemies living there who are a perpetual threat."
That literally sounds like a more coherent version of something that would come out of the current president's mouth.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's the same playbook, just with lather, rinse, repeat.
Exactly.
And people wonder why history is overwritten and hidden from us.
Yep. And it is, you look at a lot of the leaders of the right-wing movement that was happening, that was supported by the United States. There was this strategy of tension from 1969 to 1974. And this was specifically when the state and the police were part of this strategy of tension, which was made to And they would blame a lot of left-wing organizations for the violence. And meant, again, to elicit a call to action by the public saying, hey, we want more policing. We want more policing to keep us safe.
Well, it's interesting then when we revisit some of the things that we said about the movie when we were talking about the increased police presence and the fact that this village had so many police, so many dogs. As you pointed out, the carabinieri were very prevalent in this movie. And I think that context you provided is really great for us to at least understand why did this one village have all of this military occupation. They didn't give a fuck about them kids.
Nope.
They were worried about the communists.
Right. And what is a witch but a communist?
Right. We march on behalf of the Stregas.
I always wonder what people think if they like tune into an episode for the first time of our show and they're like, why are we getting a history lesson about fascism in Italy post World War II? And I personally love it. I always love that you bring all this stuff and that it is so important to understanding the context of these stories that we're discussing.
You know, and a lot of the outsiders to the insiders in Don't Torture a Duckling, a lot of the police presence.
And the fervor with which these investigations are being conducted.
And who do we believe? Who do we not believe?
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like our next bit here is a little bit more fun. So why don't you tell us about our sponsor?
Giallo January has been brought to you by J&B Scotch. Rare blended Scotch whiskey. 100% whiskies blended and bottled in Scotland combines that smokiness of a single malt Scotch with the flavor of lots of single malt Scotches. It goes down smooth like me at a truck stop.
Oh, well, there it is.
Can you hold that up again for a second? I need to take a screenshot of this.
So,
Incredible.
So I am holding up actually a bottle of J&B Rare right now. The reason being that my grandparents bought a shit ton of liquor for my aunt's wedding. It was not all drank. And then 50 years later, whatever, not 50, I just did that math so wrong. My aunt was like, there's a bunch of liquor in my mom's place that was never drank from our wedding. Do you want it? So this is actually probably from 1972 that I am holding in my hand right now.
Excellent.
Amazing.
And it is everywhere.
Does it still taste good?
I mean, it tastes like J&B Scotch, so whatever you want to say about that.
I have had J&B Scotch. I do not think it tastes good.
No, that's not your highest.
It is interesting, though. It is all over Italian horror movies.
So,
yeah.
Like, went nuts for it. Just went.
They did.
No.
And it's interesting, Severin Films, which is one of those great Blu-ray labels that puts out horror films and international films of a cult or underground variety, they've done a number of giallo and Italian horror films, and I forget which one they did this with. So if you're out there and you're a Severin fan, you can call in and correct, or David Gregory, founder of Severin, send me an email and let me know how wrong I am. But they did release a Italian movie where at certain events you could get a little mini bottle of J&B with it, and I thought that was great. So,
I love that.
And this is another like post World War II thing. There's like inklings of like, let's get some Scotch in here. But after World War II, part of me feels like, because, you know, Japan got really into whiskeys as well, that with a large American presence, as well as some other allied powers, Scotch started to become...
It's what's for dinner?
It's what's for dinner. Scotch, it's what's for dinner. Glug, glug, glug. Oh my God. Can you imagine? That'd be terrible. Especially this. No, thank you.
We're trashing our sponsor right now because they did not actually sponsor us.
They apparently didn't sponsor any of the Giallos either.
Was it like an in-joke, or was it that these filmmakers and the people involved just liked J&B?
I think it was it was more readily available. The price point was correct. Mm-hmm. And it was popular with U.S. celebrities like Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin.
There you go.
And so it became kind of like this signifier of sophistication and virility, which is different than, say, wine or a aperitivo, digestif, an amaro kind of that Italy was specializing in at the time. And then you get scotch.
Imagine doing anything just because Frank Sinatra did it.
Oh. Wear that suit, sing that song.
I mean, I assume that John Saxon's hat in Tenebrae was worn because it was a Frank Sinatra hat.
What a boss, John Saxon.
Just what a babe.
Yeah.
Not babely aspects of this, but we do have the collector aspects, that there is like the label. One of the articles that I read over many, many websites was that Italians love to collect things. Some of that has to come from a history of economic instability where you don't know how much of a thing you're going to have. So you're just like collecting. You're not hoarding, but you know, you have to build up your stocks of things sometimes, your supplies, if you will. And then there was the whole La Dolce Vita effect, where this is the good life. We have more money now. I can afford these things. And so it became very, very popular, even though they favored single malt scotches. And as I just said, that J&B is not a single malt scotch. It is a blend. But J&B also stands for Giusterini and Brooks. It was established in 1749, and Mr. Giusterini was from Bologna. Hey, so he is Italian. 1976, he actually returns home. He's still, because this was all happening in like England/Scotland.
Wait, 1760.
Sorry,
not 1976.
You know what's wild? So I just talked to someone who was like, I have, like, my dyslexia is with numbers specifically.
Yeah, no, that's a thing. My friend Amanda has it too. It's, I cannot remember what it's called, but I will ask her when I see her next week.
I am always inverting numbers, or I can see something and I think that I said 1760.
Brains are weird.
That's so much fun. They're fun. So 1760, Giusterini returns to his home. And then he sells the company to George Johnson, who is his original English investor. And now you're thinking, Johnson doesn't mean Brooks, Caitlin. That's not the same name. Go, you are correct. So the Johnson family actually sells their interest in the company in 1831 to Alfred Brooks, who I kept writing Albert Brooks.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the filmmaker of Defending Your Life.
I was going to say, Defending Your Whiskey.
I feel like Albert Brooks would be down to have some J&B with us.
Right.
Get him on here. What's he doing? He's alive, right? Albert Brooks is still with us.
Is he?
No.
I was like, I don't think he is.
Oh, God. I'm sorry, Albert Brooks.
I do this all the time.
Oh,
though.
no, he is still alive.
Hey, Albert Brooks.
Okay, good. I'm glad he's still alive.
Come on the podcast.
Then back to my plan. Get him on here.
Defend this whiskey. I have questions. Well, this all just goes to, there's a lot of this J&B whiskey in Italian Giallos. I found a few lists. I think the one that had the most was 55.
Yeah, that checks out.
But this was also very, very popular in other Italian movies at the time. However, once we get to the 80s and then moving into the 90s, it starts to fall out of favor, where we get more like Aperol and those kind of things. So
it is being drunk by Macready in The Thing.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is.
What he pours into the chess computer.
Is. I didn't read anything like None of the articles I looked at said anything about like they specifically were trying to get into video markets, video, movie, any of that. It just happened.
Well, I think we've all agreed that we wouldn't rate J&B whiskey very high, but how have people rated this movie? That was a sloppy
wow, that was
transition.
good. No, I loved that. That was excellent, May. Shut up. We have on the Rotten Tomatoes 88%. IMDB is 7 out of 10, and Letterboxd is 3.7 out of 5 or 7.4 out of 10. All of it kind of lining up, but I don't think it's high enough for this movie.
No,
That's
I don't
fair,
either.
yeah.
Like I said, my first watch was 4 stars, then 4.5. This watch was 5. I think that, like a good whiskey, it can be an acquired taste. You have to sample it more than once to make sure that you're getting fully absorbed in it. And we're going to get more absorbed in it. But first, let's make that money. And now we'll dig into the meat, the goo, the viscera, the Donald Duck doll heads in a section we call Enough is a Myth.
No, I've done enough.
Enough is a myth.
As I mentioned earlier, there is a special feature on the Arrow Blu-ray where Kat Ellinger, in a video essay, defends Fulci against accusations of misogyny, painting him as someone who is instead criticizing the patriarchal nature of society and the poor treatment of women. How do you feel about Fulci and his depictions of violence, especially when it relates to women?
I mean, I think that with a lot of the Giallo films, because Argento gets leveled with these kind of accusations as well, and a lot of times I think it's contextual and should be taken in a film-by-film basis.
Agreed.
I'm not saying that their records are flawless, far from it. I think that you are certainly going to find the trappings of the era and male attitudes of the era. But this movie, what's the word I want to choose here, as kind of wacky as Patricia is presented, she is not really problem other than some of her weird sexual advances. If anything, it's more a indictment of the patriarchy via the church and an indictment of the attitudes of the church as it looks at other men. You know, he's mad at these boys becoming sexual, and that's why he kills them. And I think the movie does have an intense scene of violence where the villagers kill the witch, but we are never meant to read that as anything other than the horror and injustice and truly wrong thing that it is. So I don't know, as far as Don't Torture a Duckling goes, that it's a terribly misogynist film. I think that it has things that could be better, but who amongst us, especially in 1972, could not, stand a re-education.
Yeah. What do you think, Caitlin?
Yeah, I think a lot of his depictions of violence are rooted in reality. Unfortunately, particularly against women. And the scene of the witch, where she is her as an outsider because she is not from the village, being attacked and killed by the insiders, the men. I also find it very interesting that it is a woman who gives her up. This is where she is, playing into the patriarchy and that violence against women.
Oh, don't worry. That's the next question.
Either way, it's not condoning the violence, right?
No.
It's not condoning the violence.
It's not condoning it or
it's not
endorsing it. Yeah, and I believe we've talked about this a little bit, and the idea of media literacy and the idea of display versus endorsement. Just because a movie has things in it that are misogynistic, that does not mean the movie or its writer or its director are inherently misogynistic. If you are making a movie about something that is essentially wrongdoing at the hands of misogyny, you have to display those things. You have to show them, because what you're trying to do, and what I think Fulci is ultimately trying to do here, is showing how damaging these things are. Mm-hmm. For a misanthrope who was basically buried in his own misery for a lot of his life, I think Fulci had that little like spark of hope in him. Like he himself was a Pandora's box, and he just wanted people to treat each other better.
Yeah.
And because they don't, that's why you get these films of his that are so violent and are so visceral, because he knows that this is what people do to each other. And he's not condoning it. He's not endorsing it. He's condemning it. And yeah, I'm sure he was not like the easiest guy to get along with, but I don't see him as some pillar of misogyny who used his films as vehicles to like subjugate women. I think if anything, he was using them as a way to say, we need to stop doing this to women.
Yeah. No, there are far, far worse examples than him in cinema history. Yeah.
Yeah. And I made a note here for myself because I didn't want to forget this, but you look at slashers, and especially American slashers, where teenagers or 20-somethings are getting punished for their essentially sinful behavior. And in this movie, these boys are getting punished for potential sinful behavior by not a masked, mutated killer, but a priest who is meant to be a paragon of the community.
A hot
who is
priest.
Meant to, yes, a hot priest who is meant to be protecting these boys.
Yeah.
But he goes about protecting them in a very backwards way, thinking that he's saving their immortal souls from damnation by killing them when they're children.
It's the fundamental difference between the content of this movie and the slasher movies of America, of the slasher cycle, because a lot of the air quote rules of the slasher cycle of the 80s are a direct response to Reagan-era politics, especially sort of the pure moral majority Reagan-era politics. The idea that if you do the drugs, if you have the sex, if you do the thing, you're going to die. And the movies, as much as we love them, reflect those values. Whereas this movie has a killer who basically is Reagan before Reagan, killing people because he's trying to instill the values. And that, to me, is the fundamental difference. Fulci is using the priest to critique the moral majority, whereas the slasher movies are like structured for the moral majority.
Right. They're reinforcing those values as almost fable-like lessons to scare teenagers away from premarital sex and drugs and other tomfoolery.
Yes.
I find it very interesting because Fulci, in one of the only interviews that he took part of, where he wasn't actually being interviewed, but he was answering questions from a journalist, he said, I am searching for God. I have God, but I also have doubts. And he talks about that in relationship to like Buñuel, where he's like, Buñuel is searching for God, but doesn't have doubts.
Right.
And I found that just very interesting, wrapped into everything that he's saying here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you think of Buñuel's movies, the ultimate spirituality of God is separate from how man presents him. I think that if you look at those Spanish movies that he did, or the films where he makes fun of the church, he's critiquing the church, but not the power. Whereas I think Fulci is like, because I doubt the church, I also doubt the existence of the power. And I think that that's a very interesting fundamental difference.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking a lot about the patriarchy. So my next question is, Aurelia knows that her son is the killer, but refuses to turn him in, a trope that is seen in many pieces of media of the overprotective mother. Do you see the overdedication of a mother to her son as a symptom of the patriarchy, and especially its hold over religion.
Well, this is such an Italian thing too, like, right? Like the like, oh, mama, you know, like
right.
The toughest of men are always portrayed as being beholden to their mothers, and it's very much a trope in Italian storytelling. It was a big thing in the work of Fellini. He loved to explore this. And I even remember in 2003 when I went to see 9 on Broadway, and my uncle came with me, and he was very pressed because at the end of the play, he was just like, they always blame the mom. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I also know a lot of fucked up people because you can't get over your mom stuff. So, like, who's to say what's correct and what's not?
What? My mom didn't completely fuck me up. I'm fine.
But I think it's a great question, May, because I think the answer is yes and no. Because, yeah, it is a function of the patriarchy insofar that there is an expectation that you as male in these movies are supposed to rise above this sort of doting and cuckolding, I guess, because the love and protection of a mother in all of these movies is ultimately also always viewed as a bad. Like, no matter what you are, if you like love your mom too much, it's a problem, you know. And in this movie,
or
of
if
course,
your mom loves you too
much, right?
Yeah,
and that's really interesting. And of course, it's always amplified to a crazy degree. But it ultimately comes down like, well, you have to get past her to be the man that you're supposed to be, and that is very patriarchal, you know.
Yeah, and I think that because this is a trope that we see not just in Italian cinema, but in a lot of cinema of mothers knowing that their sons are, for lack of a more nuanced term, monsters.
Yeah.
And doing everything in their power to protect them simply because it's their son. Not because they think what their son is doing is okay. Not because they think they have a higher moral authority than anyone else, but simply because of that, like, supposedly inherent nature of a mother to do everything she can to protect her child. And that's what we see here. And when it ultimately comes to a head of Alberto and Aurelia literally physically fighting over Malvina, who Aurelia is trying to protect and Don Alberto is trying to kill and, you know, save her soul. And it's I cannot even imagine the inner turmoil and conflict that Aurelia is feeling in that moment. Like, she's been protecting her son from getting caught, even though she knows he's doing these killings, but now he wants to kill his sister. How do you square that?
Because we know European cinema, and especially Italian cinema, does not play it safe in the way that American movies do. I mean, obviously, this is a movie all about killing kids, which is not something that would happen really stateside at all. There's a book, and I feel very bad for not remembering the name of the author, but it's a horror historian text called The Sweetest Taboo, and it's all about movies where the children are killed. And I'm sure there's an entry on this movie. But because this film already took the guardrails off, and Fulci already had the guardrails off career-wise, when you saw this for the first time, was there a part of you that was like, oh, he's going to yeet this girl right off the cliff? Like, I expected
100%.
that to be the ending, you know?
Yeah, and like, there's that one moment where you're like, wait, is she going to kill Malvina in front of Don Alberto? Because they make you think for a second that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is all such, like, it's so Catholic, too, with the mother and the whore. And that sense of, like, a women's role in things and what that should be. And I'm not saying, obviously, this happens in other religions as well. It just, as someone who went to Catholic school,
It's very emphasized in Catholicism. Okay. So, my last question. This film has many of the hallmarks of the genre, but also contains plenty of unique elements for a giallo. The small-town rural setting, the superstitious beliefs of the townspeople, and the religious fervor of the killer. How do all these elements work for you, and do they set this apart as a giallo?
You know, I do think that this is a groundbreaking giallo. I think it's one of those giallos that set the mold for others that would come, like Who Saw Her Die, other movies like that. But it is interesting because it both is definitive of the decade that follows it and an outlier. I think that because giallo films are a subgenre that we have basically what's imported to us, we forget that by and large they are procedural movies. And it's interesting to see some of the other films that get discovered more modern day but are from this era that people are like, oh, they're kind of boring. I'm like, well, yeah, because they're murder mysteries where you're not really doing an Agatha Christie thing. You're following an inspector or following a trail. And it's more Law and Order than it is Don't Torture a Duckling.
Right.
And so I think it's fascinating because people like Fulci and Argento and Deodato and Bava made us think that it was kind of a one-for-one of slasher movies or whatever, when in fact that's not the case. But as far as what I think of as a giallo, yeah, this is, except it's also not. It's really strange. Because I also, when I think of giallo, I think of fashion and opulence. And this movie is neither of those things. These are children, not fashionistas. It is not Milan or Rome or Florence. It's here, you know? Yeah. And I think that's what's interesting. When Harry Met Sally is also the ultimate rom-com, and it follows none of the conventions of a rom-com, you know, and that's what's really interesting. So
it's the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah.
Many of my favorite gialli, because I keep a ranked list of the gialli I've seen, and obviously this moved up on that list after this watch. And a lot of the ones that are ranked high for me are not just procedurals. They have either fantastical elements like Suspiria and Inferno. They are kind of outliers to the genre like Don't Torture a Duckling, or they're just doing something different that still adheres to enough of the hallmarks of the genre to be considered a part of it. And I think the biggest one for me on that note is Knife and Heart, which we covered last year with Kate and had an amazing discussion about. And like, that is a very unique giallo that also has a black-gloved killer, someone who's a little bit psychic, the suffering of beautiful, beautiful people, and fashion.
Yeah, that's a whole movie of murder twinks.
Yes.
Oh, all murder twinks all the time.
All murder twinks all the time. That's the film that we all need to go out and produce.
There you go.
Yes.
All murder twinks.
Murder Twink. Soundtrack by Murder Twink. All right. Well, thank you for answering all my questions. And we're going to throw it back to Caitlin and go to our next section because it's time to play a game.
Hello. You don't know me, but I know you. I want to play a game.
What's our game this week, Caitlin?
Okay, because I felt like it went so well last week, we are going to play another round of Giallo Jumble. Ooh. I have a name for it now. I'm going to ask you for some words. Could I get, from the two of you, agreeing 5 singular nouns?
5 singular nouns.
All right, why don't you take the first one, May?
Duck.
Ooh, cathedral.
Ooh, I like that. Candelabra.
Glove.
One more.
Morgue.
I love that. All right. Now we need 2 plural nouns.
2 plural nouns. Nuns.
Excellent. I will go with straight razors.
Oh.
Excellent.
Easily purchased still to this day, by the way. Not encouraging anyone for anything to say.
Well, if you need one. They are
if you
better
do.
razors.
It's true.
All right, 3 verbs, everyone.
Is it a present tense verb? Like,
It can actually be any verb, and I'm just going to change it up for the first one needs to be a bunch of different things.
a bunch of different...
So you just give me the verbs. I'll figure it out for you.
How about undulates?
Oh, I like that.
Yes. Love this.
D-gloves.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Oh, God. Okay. Maybe I'll just go simple with leaps.
All right. All right, and this is the only other one that has multiples. I just need 3 occupations. And then I have a couple other ones, but then there's just one you have to come up with for each.
Oh, well, inspector.
Oh, very good.
I'm gonna say bike messenger.
Oh.
How about fashion photographer?
Oh, very
Excellent.
good. Yes. All right, so I'm going to need 1 number.
One number.
69.
Oh, well, duh.
It is what it is.
1 place.
One place. Milan.
Perfect.
Can I get a contraction, please? Like, not like I'm having them, but like a can't
But
or won't or...
Yeah.
Haven't.
Haven't. I'm not having any contractions because that would be disgusting. I'm sorry.
It would make for an interesting episode.
Yes, it would. Oh my goodness. And now I'm going into birth, everyone. Have fun. Please give me an animal.
An animal. Well, a jackal.
Ooh, yes. Like how my mother was. And a color, please.
Crimson.
Wonderful.
No, I'm just thinking of the Crimson Executioner from Bloody Pit of Horror.
The Misfits mascot?
Yes.
Okay. I am going to have to put these all into order now, so talk amongst yourselves while I do this really quickly.
So, May, we were talking about making sauce. If you were going to do a pasta dish to pair with Don't Torture a Duckling.
Oh.
Right?
Okay. So I make really good from scratch impossible meatballs because a lot of my friends are vegetarian. I don't really like working with beef.
I don't eat beef, so I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind working with impossible. So I would make my meatballs, which are seasoned with Parmesan cheese, garlic powder, onion powder, or real crushed garlic if I have it on hand, salt, pepper, a little bit of rosemary, plenty of oregano, some basil, and I would sear those and then slow cook them in a sauce that I want to do San Marzano tomatoes.
Very good. Yes.
Crushed in large chunks, seasoned again with garlic. I'm going to do some big chunks of onion because I don't like eating onion, but I love the flavor. So that way
I sauce too.
Yes. And I can make my way around those chunks of onion, but they're there for people who want them. Salt, pepper, a little bit of vodka, and a little bit of cream. Because I like my sauce to have a little bit of creaminess to it, but not an overwhelming amount, because I'm also going to top it with fresh grated Parmesan. And this is all going on Campanelli pasta.
I think Campanelli is a good choice. It's funny, because you were so thoughtful on the sauce, it makes sense. I was thinking if I was going to do a pasta with this, I would do like an orzo because it's small.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. But I think that you really came up with the right sauce.
Thank you.
That's interesting. I think it would be fun to go through like different giallo and be like, all right, which one's the arrabbiata sauce? What's a puttanesca? What is, so.
Yeah. New York Ripper is just a jar of ragu that
100%.
has not been added to, has not been changed at all. Just a bottle of ragu.
Also, how have we not talked about New York Ripper yet in this conversation? It's the other Fulci movie involving a Donald Duck imagery. Like, so...
I almost put a question in here about it, but I was like, this will come up organically. I don't need to do that.
I was like, how do you think Disney felt about Donald Duck being used as
There's a portrait of him somewhere in the vault, like, do not engage. You know, like,
I am going to say that when we eventually cover New York Ripper, because I think that is a movie that is excellent subject matter for this podcast. I would love to have you back on for that.
I will commit here and now. I will return. Michael Varrati will return for the New York Ripper.
After you brought up the sauce thing, Michael, I brought up the sauce thing because I get a lot of shit sometimes for making like a mirepoix with the
Wait, mirepoix?
Mirepoix! I say mirepoix. Mirepoix! And I get shit for that because it doesn't come from a can sometimes. So all I have to say is I get a lot of, this doesn't taste authentic. And I'm like, I don't know how your mom made this. Go ahead. Have fun.
Although sometimes it's about confidence. I'm sure my mother would not love me to... Well, she thinks this is funny. It's just more that I'm sharing it on a public forum. My mom makes homemade lasagna, and she'll do it from scratch, and it is very requested at holidays. And there was one Christmas Eve, because, you know, for some Italians, Christmas Eve is the night. And she had been very sought after to bring her lasagna to Christmas Eve dinner, and I don't know how, to this day, we're still unclear. She went to grab some seasoning and accidentally grabbed mocha powder and put just enough in before she realized, holy shit, what have I done? And she was like, it's too late. I'm just going to commit to the bit. And she's just like evened it out with like this. And she served it. People are like, Anita, this is amazing. And like, no one ever fucking knew. But like, because I knew it was in there, every now and then I'd be like, I taste the Vegas hint of chocolate. But we, to this day, crack up about the year that she served the mocha lasagna. And it was all about, she's just like, I made the lasagna you asked for. And everyone was like, yeah. And nobody was the wiser. So I think that it's not about the can. It's not about the, like, just walk in with the confidence.
There you go. There you go.
It's all about selling that dish.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is just an East Coast thing or not, because I've met a lot of East Coast people with like weird food shit. I mean, I know, May, you have weird food shit too, but this is different.
Yeah, but that's autism.
This is people like, I don't like to eat vegetables, or I'm afraid of fruit. And I'm like,
that's
it is
like a
wild.
Maury Povich issue.
Yeah. This seems like a personal problem to you, where it's like, I don't like
I'm picky
onion
about
or garlic.
fruits and vegetables.
Is it a texture thing or a...
Yeah, it's mostly a texture thing. With bananas, it's also the smell, because I have childhood memories of getting heat stroke, having to take banana-flavored medicine, and not being able to keep anything in my body.
Got it.
You know, just little things.
That's understandable.
Yeah, that's different. But mostly it's texture. Like, I have a lot of food aversions because of texture. Autism's fun. Well, Caitlin, while you're still working on that, I'm going to say, let's go ahead and categorize this movie. Michael, would you call this a pleaser or a punisher?
Oh, you know... I know it's the name of the show. I knew what I was getting into coming on, and now I'm like, I don't know. I think that it is a punisher for the victims, and I think it certainly is a punisher for anybody who's like, oh, innocence should thrive. But as far as, from a underground cinephile standpoint, I'm like, it's a pleaser because I can see the now trajectory this man is on. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's always the interesting thing with this question that we have forgotten to answer on many of our episodes, admittedly, is that pleaser versus punisher is so deeply based on context. And I think that really came out when Caitlin and I did our 2025 recap episode, where there were things on Caitlin's list under punishers that were on my list under pleasers, and vice versa. And I find that kind of delightful, because it is such a fluid question, and the answer could change based on so many different things.
Well, and then it's also a matter of there is a catalog of truly transgressive cinema, right? In movies that are so upsetting, but there has to be something about them that pleases us enough that we're still talking about it, even if we don't find the subject pleasing. You know, I think of these movies that are punishing to watch, and yet if they were without something, we just never would speak of them again. And I think that that's a really fascinating thing.
Yeah, I mean, it can be an overwhelmingly punishing filmic experience and still be rewarding in certain ways and give you something to really chew on.
Yeah.
And I think this movie is an excellent example of that. It's got this hypnotic score. It's got pretty arresting visuals and a shocking story. But look at this discussion that we've been having. We're in raw recording time. We're almost 2 hours in. And that's getting up there for length in our repertoire of episodes. And it's because there has been so much to talk about. And I love that we can take a movie that is a Punisher and do that with it.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, we're starting out with kids are dying, right? Like that is, I feel like almost on most people's list automatically is going to be like,
Yeah. I mean, the fact that literally the first thing we see in this movie is someone digging up the bones of a child.
Yes.
Like that kind of sets the tone for what you're going to get for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's, and again, it's a bit shocking within the genre because of the kid aspect.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, oh shit, let's go. And speaking of let's going, we have our new movie, everyone. So
okay,
here's the exciting movie called Haven't Degloved the Jackal.
Ooh.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I know. In Milan, a jackal is ungulated, and the inspector investigates the case. When 2 more jackals are also ungulated, the inspector suspects the local candelabra, who practices crimson magic, and might be the ungulator. Meanwhile, you never know. Meanwhile, Milan is crowded with nuns. Including the experienced Andrea Martelli from Rome. That nun teams up with the daughter of a wealthy bike messenger that is living in Milan after a cathedral scandal.
Oh, good. Those happen.
Yes.
It's true.
They meet the village fashion photographer, who has a group of straight racers that play soccer at a church and is... And this fashion photographer...
I love the idea of a soccer team called the Straight Racers.
Yeah.
This fashion photographer is the son of Donna Aurelia that raises a 69-year-old glove. They believe the glove has witnessed the ungulator and might know who the ungulator is. Da da da!
You know, it has everything. Fashion, gloves.
Ungulation
and
nuns.
straight razors.
We did it. We just made our own Giallo, everyone. Hooray!
That's amazing. Yay.
Absolutely incredible. Well, before we wrap up, does anyone have any final thoughts they'd like to share?
You know, I think that life is a journey. No.
I learned something today.
I do think that's interesting that we didn't talk about... we spoke about how Patricia's kind of engagement with the children is very uncomfy. And one of the things we didn't discuss is that it was uncomfortable for the audience as well. And Fulci actually was arrested for child endangerment during the making of this or the release of this movie because of the scene where, he brings the orange juice to a naked woman. And Fulci had to prove how movies work to be like, the people were never in the same room at the same time.
Certainly not with her naked.
Yeah, this was an ongoing theme of Italian horror filmmakers getting arrested and having to prove that they were just making movies. But yeah, I think that it's not about the witches It's about what we learned along the way. I don't know.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap up with what awaits us next time.
Don't you see? He's got us now. Okay, this is exactly what he wants. We can't go to the police, not now. He's made sure of that. He's just out there and he's watching us and waiting. What are you waiting for, huh? What are you waiting for?
That brings us to the end of our episode. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey, fellow travelers. If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and review wherever you can, because it helps more people find the show. It makes us all tingly inside. We actually have a review to read from T.S. Eliot, which we originally read last week, but had some audio issues. So I've got that pulled up. So T.S. Eliot says, "Quite the pleaser. This is such a delightful podcast with a wonderful angle to its discussions. I've certainly moved some films up in my watch list after hearing them come up on the feed. Y'all have the most playful and excited energy, and it makes every episode hit perfectly. As a side note, I just finished listening to the episode on the fall, and I'm not sure how far in advance of release these are recorded, but my imagination wants to say a week or so. So I can say that May and I got our nipples pierced on the same date."
Hey!
And to answer that episode's question about Lee Pace, I'd give the date to someone who would appreciate him. Too much of a lesbian to see the appeal, personally. And I will say that when we originally read that, Kate's response was, wow, that is dedication to being a lesbian, because have you seen Lee Pace? Well, thank you, T.S. Eliot. And if, like I said, if you want your review read on air, please send us one, or a nice email with questions.
We'll be kind of nice when we answer them. It's going to be great.
Yeah. And if you want to find us to talk to us, we're on Instagram at Pleasers and Punishers, and on Blue Sky at Pleasers Punishers. You can also email us at pleaserspunisherspodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Everson Poe. You can find my music on Ampwall, Bandcamp, and streaming services as Everson Poe. My records finally finished production and are on their way to the label. So hopefully by the time you're hearing this, pre-orders will actually be up for the vinyl. And you can also hear me podcasting on Tender Subject and Slayerfest 98. Caitlin, where can you be found on the internet?
I can be found at Caitlin of the North on Blue Sky and Instagram, and Cat of the North on Letterboxd. I will say when this hits, this will be the last episode before I have surgery. So I'm very excited about all of that.
Do you want to tell people?
Oh, yeah,
kind of
totally.
surgery
I
you're
can.
getting?
I'm actually getting a breast reduction. I'm very, very excited about it. I mean, I'm not anticipating anything weird happening, but if it does, I have. I'm going to put out pictures to remember me by on Instagram, so check that out.
As someone who has seen your boobs many times, I can say they are amazing, and I can also understand why you need them to be smaller.
Yes.
And you're still going to be hot no matter what.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, speaking of hot people, Michael, tell us where you can be found.
Oh, goodness, with that introduction. You can follow me at Michael Varrati on Blue Sky and Instagram. If you're interested in hearing me continually rattling on about movies in the podcast form, every other Wednesday at midnight, you can hear me on Midnight Mass, a show that I co-host with drag icon Peaches Christ, wherein we talk about our favorite cult movies and your favorite cult movies. We're also on Blue Sky at Midnight Mass Pod. Otherwise, if you want to keep up with my other nonsense, I make movies, and I'm always up to some nonsense. The best way to kind of know what's happening is just go find me on IMDB, because otherwise, I don't know what streaming platform stuff is on. I want to go read books.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us. Like I said, this has been one of our longer and more involved discussions, and I loved everything that you brought to the table here.
Yes, thank you.
So.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This was so much fun. It's such a serious movie that, you know, heading into a conversation about it, you don't know if it's going to be a good time or not. But this was the greatest of all possible outcomes in discussing a movie of this content.
About child murder and the Catholic Church.
Well, again, thank you for being a part of it. And next week's episode will be the start of Fetish February with the Duke of Burgundy and another very special guest. This is a first-time watch for me, so I am very excited.
I'm so excited for you, May.
As a kinky lesbian who has unfortunately lost her sex drive, I'm hoping this movie reawakens some things in me. But until then, do some aftercare, clean your toys, set healthy boundaries, and
leave your headless dolls and ducks where you can find them.